Welcome back to our Pray, Plan, Do framework. And our whole goal of this video series is to create a loose, simple, and flexible framework for the year ahead. So in our last video, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to link it below for you, we surrendered this new year to the Lord. And we said that no matter where you're starting at, if this video finds you and it's June, that's fine too. It is never too late to stop and surrender all areas of our life to the Lord. And that's exactly what we did. I'm going to go ahead and link that video for you below. So in case you are catching us in the middle of this series, then you can pause and go and watch the other two before this. All right, so when it comes to planning, I usually find that I have people in two camps. I have those who are my type A's that love to plan. They love color coding, they love creating a plan, and they love to do it. And then there's the rest of us, that those people who maybe creating a plan for their life seems a little overwhelming, or maybe they are just overwhelmed in every last area of their life that planning seems a little unimaginable. Hey, that's me. And I have been there more often than I can count. And so having the Pray, Plan, Do framework as a simple way to jumpstart where I'm at, get back on track, allows me the freedom to kind of rein things in after I've gotten off the rails in a little bit. So in case you're wondering, who is this imperfect planner talking to you about planning? Hey there, I'm Sarah Ann Good from Proverbs 31 Mentor, and I am so thrilled that you've joined me today. Our goal and our mission on this channel is simple. We make much of Jesus by helping women know the gospel, apply the gospel, and live the gospel, because we know that we live in a lost and broken world, and it is our goal to live on mission for the glory of God by soaking in His Word, applying it, and through deep fellowship with our Heavenly Father. And we know that even though we're talking about planning, that the gospel is in that, and that no area of our life should be compartmentalized. Every last area of our life should be surrendered and lived on purpose for the Lord. But we also know that that sounds really, really good. But when it comes to creating a plan for an entire year, how do we go about that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because in the link in the description below, before we dive into the meat of our lesson today, I have a free printable for you. And these are some of my favorite questions that help me, before I plan, reflect on where I'm at, because it's really almost impossible to move forward and create a plan if you have no idea where you're starting from. Have you ever been there? I've heard a lot of these, these gurus that are like, live your best life now. This is going to be your best year. When the ball drops on January 1st, woo, your life is suddenly better. And that may sound great when you're in your pajamas and the ball strikes 12, I should say. But when you actually go to sit down with a planner, with a notebook, to look and say, what does this look like for me in the year ahead? You really can't do that until you know where you're starting from. And I think that's one of the biggest planning mistakes that kept me stuck for so long, is that I wasn't honest with myself where I was at. I didn't have simple questions that I could use to come back to time and time again to kind of help me rein it in when things got messy and life got complicated and chaotic. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Before we put anything to paper, before we plan anything, before we set a goal, before we do anything, after seeking God like we did in our last episode, now we're going to reflect on where we're at. And I think the more honest we can be with where our life is now, with where our responsibilities are, what my responsibilities look like, that is when in our next video, we're going to be able to start creating that flexible, loose plan to move forward. So the supplies that you'll need for today is you want to go ahead and grab your planner. This is mine. Everything that I'm working out of and teaching you today is part of the Abundant Life Planner and the framework that we use to help women move forward. This is a simple framework that the Lord gave me for how to move forward in my life after just years of struggle. I have 2 special needs children who are a lot, and I love them so very much, but they make life super interesting and very non-traditional. And so sitting down with one of those beautiful planners and everything was perfect that I would buy in the store, I would just simply accumulate stacks of them because they never worked for me. And that's one of the things that I needed in creating my own planner. I needed a variety of templates to choose from. I needed a variety of weekly planners, of monthly planners, of daily layouts to choose from according to whatever season that I'm in. And so this way, I always have access to the templates and I can create a planner that works for me. And so that's exactly what I did. And it's something that I decided to share with the world because I kept hearing from Christian women that their Christian planner felt a little boxed in too. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and to get my desk ready. You go ahead and download those reflection questions, get your planner, get your pen, and let's go ahead and dive in. One of the biggest blessings that you can give yourself as you close one year and head into the next is a quiet moment to be able to reflect on where you've been. It's important to carve out space. And even if it's not a physical space, even if your family is still around, or even if it's you have 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, it's important for you to reflect on where you've been this year. You know, some of you are coming off a year that's been filled with hardship and struggle. Some of you are just hoping and praying that this next year is better, while others of you I know have had a year filled with mountaintop experiences that have been filled with God's blessings, and you have felt His presence in a powerful way. So regardless of which you find yourself in today, let's take a few moments to walk through some simple questions. In the Pray, Plan, Do framework, in our last video, we did our pray. We prayed for the new year and kind of walked through the Acts prayer method to be able to really give specific prayers to God and to surrender this new year to Him. But before we dive into planning, it's really important that we reflect on where we've been. Because I think so often when people talk about moving forward, that means like escaping, that they are just ready for this next season to begin. They are ready for this stage of life to be over and to move on to something better. But regardless of what the new year has for us, it's really important that we take note of where we've been. We take note of where we are currently, because without knowing where we are, we're not going to know our starting place. So these are a few questions that the Lord led me to several years ago after walking through a series of hardships and almost limping into the new year. I felt like if this new year isn't better, I really don't know what else I'm going to do. But before I could even think about moving forward, I had to take a moment to look back. So I want you to go ahead and grab this free printable. It's towards the bottom in the description. Either print it out or it's pretty basic. You don't necessarily have to print it out. You could just grab a notebook paper or just do this along with me. So I encourage you to write down and reflect on what went well in each area of your life. And what I mean by each area of your life, I like to kind of categorize it. If you're printing these off and wanted to make one for like finances, for home, for family, for hospitality, you could even have one for homemaking. In the Abundant Life Planner, all of our Pray, Plan, Do sections are broken up into the most major sections of your life. So I encourage you to think through these questions for each area of your life. So you might want to think through what went well with your finances, what went through with your home. Let's just call it homemaking for now. Okay. Your family. How are your family relationships? How are your schedules? I also like to think through of self-care, health. I think health is more a better target than necessarily self-care. Don't forget to put your spiritual growth in there. And I want you to spend time really being honest with yourself. What is going well now? Even if you look at these and say like, oh, this year has been not so great. I don't have many positive things to say. I want you to just try to pinpoint one or two things that are going well in either one of these categories or all of the categories. And if you need to, go ahead and pause this video so you can just take a moment to jot down and reflect. If you run out of room here, feel free to grab a piece of paper or even to just use your favorite note-taking app. That's fine too. Then I want you to pause and I want you to think again through these areas. What didn't go well? What are the things that you're really, really struggling with? What are the areas that you're just really praying for the Lord to intervene in this area? And then once you go through and identify what didn't go well in these areas, I want you to put a star. What is my greatest need right now? Because so often when it comes to change, when it comes to moving forward, we almost, if we were looking at like a total life change that we feel like we need, that we might think all of these are emergencies and fires to put out. And why that may be true. Well, if you look at these areas and you just feel overwhelmed by all of them, I want you to choose your greatest need right now. Had that word. What's my greatest need right now? That if you worked on this one area, this would allow you growth, momentum, or something to spill over to the other area. Now, if you're asking me, if you and I were to sit over coffee and we would be chatting about how things are going for us, what is important for us to note is that if we're struggling in multiple categories, I'm always going to encourage you to get your spiritual growth, to get your spiritual life right first. Because as believers, if we are not in line with the Lord, that is our greatest need. He is our greatest need. Because once we shift our priorities and put the Lord as the Lord of our life, He gives us the strength and the ability to be able to start making little tiny steps forward in each of these areas. The Bible tells us that the Lord should be Lord of our life and He should be first in everything that we do. That should be over our marriage. That should be over our children, our job, our finances, our health, basically anything else. God should be first. So if you are struggling in your relationship with the Lord, maybe you've been struggling to read the Bible, maybe you've been struggling in your prayer life, I encourage you to get right with God first. Because when we align that and make Him Lord of our life, that's when we're able to really see and start to fit into these other pieces of our life. And we can truly see what God has for us. And then He will give us the wisdom and the ability to be able to move forward. So often when it comes to goals, when it comes to moving forward, when it comes to just actually making progress, we get overwhelmed because there's so many things that feel heavy and so many things that feel overwhelming. So even if all of these areas feel overwhelming, go ahead and identify your greatest need now. Then that's the area that you are going to focus on in January and February. And then once things start moving a little bit better in that area, then you can choose your next area of greatest need. In the past, I've even found it helpful to rank area of greatest need. So I've gone ahead and I've put a 1 by my greatest need, and then all the way through the rest of the categories. So that you're able to, once you get this greatest need kind of moving forward, and I'm not talking about perfection here. None of these things are about perfection or doing life in our own strength. All of these are about surrendering our lives to the Lord and asking the Lord to give us wisdom and the ability to be able to move forward in this area. So once you get your greatest need kind of somewhat under control, you're moving in the right direction, then you can go ahead and look at your area that you listed as your second area of greatest need and start to make progress in that area. And then the third, and so on. As we go ahead and wind out one year, it's important for us to note the ways that God is working in our lives and the blessings that He's bestowed upon us. Sometimes as we hit this point in the year, we just feel like we've kind of run out of blessings, that things have been so hard and so difficult that the blessings are hard to find. But God tells us that the more that we meditate on His truth, the more that we revisit His faithfulness and the way that He has provided for us, that is where we're able to renew our mind with truth, and we're able to camp out and bask in His goodness. This is where we fight those battles of fear, anxiety, depression, sorrow, grief, by renewing our mind with what God has done in the past. And as we step into a new year, there is no better thing to do than to revisit the blessings that God gave us throughout the year. For our next question, it's important for us to look for how God revealed Himself to me last year. Now, if you're currently in a season where God is far away from you, let me encourage you that He is calling you back home. So He may not have revealed Himself to you other than to prick your heart to say, "Daughter, return to me. It's time for you to come back to me." And sometimes God doesn't reveal Himself in clear, precise ways that we would love. But sometimes it's in those still, quiet moments and ways that He presses into us with His Holy Spirit that He reveals to us. Sometimes He reveals Himself to us through His Word. So maybe as you were diving into Scripture this year, maybe the Lord had a message to you through His Word, or the same through prayer. Or maybe the Lord prompted someone to speak truth into your life because He had prompted them to do so. So again, as we head into this new year, it's powerful to sit and look and see at those God moments throughout the year, the ways that God has revealed Himself to you in ways that you never would have thought possible on January 1. And then finally, it's important for us to identify what changes we need to make to move forward. Because the truth is, when we want to make progress and we want to move forward, if we keep doing life the same, if we keep making those same bad habits, those same silly choices that do not lead to fruitfulness, then we're never going to make progress. So go ahead and brainstorm maybe what habits do I need to get rid of or adopt. Maybe changes to your lifestyle that you need to make. And really and truly just think about the areas that you said, what didn't go well? And then what would it look like? What changes would be needed to be made so that you could make progress in this area? And sometimes when we just look at it as simply as, this area is not going well, what could I do to fix it? Take all emotion out of it, take all heart behind it, and start looking at it from a practical standpoint. In my life, my biggest area of struggle in homemaking is laundry. If you've been around my email list, I'm constantly jabbing about my laundry piles, and just when I think I get my laundry under control, then they tend to sprout back up. And so it's then that I take a look and see at, okay, my laundry's piling up again. I evaluate what are my current circumstances, what is standing in my way. If it's time, okay, where do I have time to fit in the laundry? How many loads a day would this help me be able to move forward and make a dent in this? Who is going to put away the clothes? This is another big one now that my kids are getting older. And I just start picking apart the problem. And I start asking good questions to help you troubleshoot. And sometimes just thinking of things logically, again, taking the heart and the emotion out of it, can help us think, okay, I'm going to almost reverse engineer this problem and think about my stumbling blocks and then what I can do to fix that stumbling blocks. Now, sometimes a problem, I'll need to go back to this problem many, many, many times. Sometimes I think I will have gotten a struggle under control, and then, my goodness, here it comes, popping back up again, and it's time for me to revisit this. So as you're reflecting on the year, I want to encourage you to keep this with your planner. Keep this printout, keep these questions, because as problems arise, you don't have to wait until the new year. It could simply be that you're reflecting on your life so that you're able to identify what's going well, what are your stumbling blocks, so you can move forward. And then I encourage you to go back to that prayer list that we made, our Acts prayer list that we made in our last video, and ask the Lord to help you with your greatest need. Ask him to help you and show you how. Ask him to give you wisdom and to fill you with the problem-solving abilities to be able to make progress and move forward. Sometimes sitting and reflecting on these things can make all the difference. Thank you for joining me as we reflected on this year, really our life. And make sure to subscribe to Proverbs 31 Mentor. We have a brand new video coming up in this next series very soon. I'm planning where we're actually going to take the pray, the reflect, and move forward to make some plans for the year ahead. I will see you next time.